The Atharvaveda is the knowledge storehouse of atharvāṇas, the procedures for everyday life. The text is the fourth Veda, but has been a late addition to the Vedic scriptures of Hinduism. The Atharvaveda is composed in Vedic Sanskrit, and it is a collection of 730 hymns with about 6,000 mantras, divided into 20 books. About a sixth of the Atharvaveda text adapts verses from the Rigveda, and except for books 15 and 16, the text is in poem form, deploying a diversity of Vedic meters. Two different recensions of the text, the Puranas and the Aṇakya, have survived into modern times. Reliable manuscripts of the Puranas edition were believed to have been lost, but a well-preserved version was discovered among a collection of palm leaf manuscripts in Odisha in 1957. The Atharvaveda is sometimes called the Veda of magical formulas, an epithet declared to be incorrect by other scholars. The Samhita layer of the text likely represents a developing 2nd millennium BCE tradition of magico-religious rites to address superstitious anxiety, spells to remove maladies believed to be caused by demons, and herbs and nature-derived potions as medicine. Many books of the Atharvaveda Samhita are dedicated to rituals without magic and to theosophy. The text, states Kenneth Zisk, is one of oldest surviving record of the evolutionary practices in religious medicine and reveals the earliest forms of folk healing of Indo-European antiquity. It was likely compiled as a Veda contemporaneously with Samaveda and Yajurveda, or about 1200 BC to 1000 BC. Along with the Samhita layer of text, the Atharvaveda includes a Brahmana text, and a final layer of the text that covers philosophical speculations. The latter layer of Atharvaveda text includes 3 primary Upanishads, influential to various schools of Hindu philosophy. These include the Mundaka Upanishad, the Mandukya Upanishad, and the Prashna Upanishad. Etymology and nomenclature. The Veda may be named, states Munir Williams, after the mythical priest named Atharvāṇa who was first to develop prayers to fire offer Soma, and who composed formulas and spells intended to counteract diseases and calamities. Munir Williams notes that the now obsolete term for fire used to be Athar. The name Atharvaveda, states Laurie Patton, is for the text being Veda of the Atharvāṇas. The oldest name of the text, according to its own verse 10.7.20, was Atharvāṇa, a compound of Atharvāṇa and Angiras, both Vedic scholars. Each school called the text after itself, such as Saunakya Samhita, meaning the compiled text of Saunakya. The Atharvāṇa and Angiras names, states Morris Bloomfield, imply different things, with the former considered auspicious while the latter implying hostile sorcery practices. Over time, the positive auspicious side came to be celebrated and the name Atharvaveda became widespread. The latter name Angiras, which is linked to Agni and priests in the Vedas, states George Brown, may also be related to Indo-European Angiros found in an Aramaic text from Nippur. Michael Witzel states Atharvāṇa roots may be *Atharvāṇa or priest, sorcerer, with links to Avestan of Theta Rawan, priests, and Tocharian and LT *ATHR, superior force. The Atharvaveda is also occasionally referred to as Bhagavāṇa Rasa and Brahmaveda, after Bhrigu and Brahma respectively. Text. The Atharvaveda is a collection of 20 books, with a total of 730 hymns of about 6,000 stanzas. The text is, state Patrick Olivelle and other scholars, a historical collection of beliefs and rituals addressing practical issues of daily life of the Vedic society, and it is not a liturgical Yajurveda-style collection. Recensions. The Karanavyuha, a later-era Sanskrit text, states that the Atharvaveda Atharvaveda had 9 shakas, or schools: Paribalada, Stauda, Mauda, Saurnikya, Jajala, Jalada, Brahmavada, Devadasa and Karanavadya. Of these, only the Shaurnikya recension, and the more recently discovered manuscripts of Paribalada recension have survived. The Paribalada edition is more ancient. The 2 recensions differ in how they are organized, as well as content. For example, the Book 10 of Paribalada recension is more detailed, more developed and more conspicuous in describing monism, the concept of oneness of Brahman, all life forms and the world. Organization: The Atharvaveda Samhita originally was organized into 18 books, and the last 2 were added later. These books are arranged neither by subject nor by authors, but by the length of the hymns. Each book generally has hymns of about a similar number of verses, and the surviving manuscripts label the book with the shortest hymns as Book 1, and then in an increasing order. Most of the hymns are poetic and set to different meters, but about a sixth of the book is prose. Most of the hymns of Atharvaveda are unique to it, except for the 1/6 of its hymns that it borrows from the Rigveda, primarily from its 10th mandala. The 19th book was a supplement of a similar nature, likely of new compositions, and was added later. The 143 hymns of the 20th book of Atharvaveda Samhita is almost entirely borrowed from the Rigveda. The hymns of Atharvaveda cover a motley of topics across its 20 books. Roughly, the first 7 books focus primarily on magical poems for all sorts of healing and sorcery, and Michael Witzel states these are reminiscent of Germanic and Hittite sorcery stanzas, and may likely be the oldest section. Books 8 to 12 are speculations of a variety of topics, while books 13 to 18 tend to be about life cycle rites of passage rituals. The Srauta Sutra texts Vaitana Sutra and the Kausika Sutra are attached to the Atharvaveda Shaurnikya edition, as are a supplement of Atharvāṇa Prayashitas, 2 Pratashakayas, and a collection of Parasithas. For the Paribalada edition of Atharvaveda, corresponding texts were Agastya and Padanasi Sutras, but these are lost or yet to be discovered. Dating and historical context. The ancient Indian tradition initially recognized only 3 Vedas: the Rigveda, the verse 3.12.9.1 of Taittiriya Brahmana, the verse 5.32-33 of Aitareya Brahmana, and other Vedic era texts mention only 3 Vedas. The acceptance of the atharvāṇas hymns and traditional folk practices was slow, and it was accepted as another Veda much later than the first 3, by both orthodox and heterodox traditions of Indian philosophies. The early Buddhist Nikaya texts, for example, do not recognize Atharvaveda as the 4th Veda, and make references to only 3 Vedas. Olson states that the ultimate acceptance of Atharvaveda as the 4th Veda probably came in the second half of the 1st millennium BCE. However, notes Max Muller, the hymns of Atharvaveda existed by the time Chandogya's Upanishad was completed, but were then referred to as hymns of Atharvāṇa Rasa. Fritz Stahl states that the text may be a compilation of poetry and knowledge that developed in 2 different regions of ancient India: the Kuru region in northern India and the Panchalas region of eastern India. The former was home to Paribalada, whose name was derived from the sacred fig tree named Pipala. This school's compositions were in the Rigvedic style. The Panchalas region contributions came from composer priests Angirasis and Bhargavas, whose style was unlike the metric Rigvedic composition, and their content included forms of medical sorcery. The Atharvaveda editions now known are a combination of their compositions. The core text of the Atharvaveda falls within the classical mantra period of Vedic Sanskrit during the 2nd millennium BC, younger than the Rigveda, and roughly contemporary with the Yajurveda mantras, the Rigvedic Kalani, and the Samaveda. There is no absolute dating of any Vedic text, including the Atharvaveda. The dating for Atharvaveda is derived from the new metals and items mentioned therein. For example, mentions iron, and such mentions have led the scholars to the estimate that the Atharvaveda hymns were compiled in the early Indian Iron Age, c. 1200 to 1000 BC, corresponding to the early Kuru kingdom. Contents: the Atharvaveda Samhita contains hymns, many of which were charms, magic spells and incantations meant to be pronounced by the person who seeks some benefit, or more often by a sorcerer who would say it on his or her behalf. The most frequent goal of these hymns, charms and spells were a long life of a loved one, a recovery from some illness. In these cases, the affected would be given substances such as a plant and an amulet. Some magic spells were for soldiers going to war with the goal of defeating the enemy. Others for anxious lovers seeking to remove rivals or to attract the lover who is less than interested. Some for success at a sporting event, in economic activity, for bounty of cattle and crops, or removal of petty pest bothering a household. Some hymns were not about magic spells and charms, but prayer and philosophical speculations. The contents of the Atharvaveda contrasts with the other Vedas. The 19th century Indologist Weber summarized the contrast as follows: the spirit of the two collections is indeed widely different. In the Rigveda there breathes a lively natural feeling, a warm love for nature, while in the Atharva there prevails, on the contrary, only an anxious dread of her evil spirits and the magical powers. In the Rigveda we find the people in a state of free activity and independence. In the Atharva we see it bound in the fetters of the hierarchy and superstition. Jan Gonda cautions that it would be incorrect to label Atharvaveda Samhita as mere compilation of magical formulas, witchcraft and sorcery. While such verses are indeed present in the Samhita layer, a significant portion of the Samhita text are hymns for domestic rituals without magic or spells, and some are theosophical speculations such as all Vedic gods are one. Additionally, the non-Samhita layers of Atharvaveda text include a Brahmana and several influential Upanishads. Samhita surgical and medical speculations. The Atharvaveda includes mantras and verses for treating a variety of ailments. For example, the verses in hymn 4.15 of the recently discovered Paribalada version of the Atharvaveda discuss how to deal with an open fracture, and how to wrap the wound with Rohini plant, charms against fever, jaundice and diseases. Numerous hymns of the Atharvaveda are prayers and incantations wishing a child or loved one to get over some sickness and become healthy again, along with comforting the family members. The Vedic era assumption was that diseases are caused by evil spirits, external beings or demonic forces who enter the body of a victim to cause sickness. Hymn 5.21 of the Paribalada edition of the text, for example, states, remedy from medicinal herbs. Several hymns in the Atharvaveda such as hymn 8.7, just like the Rigveda's hymn 10.97, is a praise of medicinal herbs and plants, suggesting that speculations about the medical and health value of plants and herbs was an emerging field of knowledge in ancient India. The Atharvaveda hymn states, spells and prayers to gain a lover, husband. The contents of Atharvaveda have been studied to glean information about the social and cultural mores in Vedic era of India. A number of verses relate to spells for gaining a husband or a wife, or love of a woman, or to prevent any rivals from winning over one's love interest. speculations on the nature of man, life, good and evil. The Atharvaveda Samhita, as with the other Vedas, includes some hymns such as 4.1, 5.6, 10.7, 13.4, 17.1, 19.5, 3-54, with metaphysical questions on the nature of existence, man, heaven and hell, good and evil. Hymn 10.7 of Atharvaveda, for example, asks questions such as, what is the source of cosmic order? What and where is planted this notion of faith, holy duty, truth? How is earth and sky held? Is the space beyond the sky? What are seasons and where do they go? Does Skamba penetrate everything or just some things? Does Skamba know the future? Is Skamba the basis of law, devotion and belief? Who or what is Skamba? The wonderful structure of man. The Atharvaveda, like other Vedic texts, states William Norman Brown, goes beyond the duality of heaven and hell, and speculates on the idea of Skamba Brahman as the all-pervasive monism. Good and evil, Sat and Asat, are conceptualized differently in these hymns of Atharvaveda and the Vedic thought, wherein these are not dualistic explanation of nature of creation, universe or man. Rather, the text transcends these and the duality therein. Order is established out of chaos, truth is established out of untruth, by a process and universal principles that transcend good and evil. Prayer for peace. Some hymns are prayer qua prayer, desiring harmony and peace. For example, Brahmana. The Atharvaveda includes Gopatha Brahmana text that goes with Atharva Samhita. Upanishads. The Atharvaveda has three primary Upanishads embedded within it. Mundaka Upanishad. The Mundaka Upanishad, embedded inside Atharvaveda, is a poetic style Upanishad, with 64 verses, written in the form of mantras. However, these mantras are not used in rituals, rather they are used for teaching and meditation on spiritual knowledge. In ancient and medieval era Indian literature and commentaries, the Mundaka Upanishad is referred to as one of the mantra Upanishads. The Mundaka Upanishad contains 3 mundakams, each with 2 sections. The first mundakam states Roa defines the science of higher knowledge and lower knowledge, and then asserts that acts of oblations and pious gifts are foolish and are nothing to reduce unhappiness in current life and next. Rather, it is knowledge that frees. The second mundakam describes the nature of the Brahman, the Atman, and the path to know Brahman. The third mundakam continues the discussion and then asserts that the state of knowing Brahman is one of freedom, fearlessness, liberation and bliss. The Mundaka Upanishad is one of texts that discuss the pantheism theory in Hindu scriptures. The text, like other Upanishads, also discusses ethics. Through continuous pursuit of satyutapis, samyajnana, and brahmacharya, one attains Atman. Mandukya Upanishad. The Mandukya Upanishad is the shortest of all the Upanishads found in the Atharvaveda text. The text discusses the syllable Om, presents the theory of 4 states of consciousness, asserts the existence and nature of Atman. The Mandukya Upanishad is notable for inspiring Gaudapada's Karika, a classic for the Vedanta school of Hinduism. Mandukya Upanishad is among the oft-cited texts on chronology and philosophical relationship between Hinduism and Buddhism. Prashna Upanishad. The Prashna Upanishad is from the Paripallada school of Atharvavedans. The text contains 6 prashna, and each is a chapter with a discussion of answers. The first 3 questions are profound metaphysical questions but, states Edward Rowett, do not contain any defined, philosophical answers, are mostly embellished mythology and symbolism. The fourth section, in contrast, contains substantial philosophy. The last two sections discuss the symbol Om and moksha concept. The Prashna Upanishad is notable for its structure and sociological insights into the education process in ancient India. Manuscripts and translations. The Shawnakya text was published by Rudolph Roth and William Dwight Whitney in 1856, by Shankipandurang Pandit in the 1890s, and by Vishvabandhu in 1960–1962. Ralph Griffith translated some chapters into English in 1897, while Maurice Bloomfield published one of the most relied upon translations of the Shawnakya recension of Atharvaveda in 1899. A corrupted and badly damaged version of the Puranas text was edited by Leroy Carr Barrett from 1905 to 1940 from a single Kashmirian Narada manuscript. Durgamahan Bhattacharya's discovered palm leaf manuscripts of the Puranas recension in Odisha in 1957. His son Deepak Bhattacharya has published the manuscripts. Thomas Zender translated Book 2 of the Puranas recension into German in 1999, and Arlo Griffiths, Alexander Lubotsky and Carlos Lopez have separately published English translations of its books 5 through 15. Influence. Medicine and healthcare. Kenneth Zisk states that the magico-religious medicine had given way to a medical system based on empirical and rational ideas in ancient India by around the start of Christian era. Still, the Texan people of India continued to revere the ancient Vedic texts. Rishi Sushruta, remembered for his contributions to surgical studies, credits Atharvaveda as a foundation. Similarly, the verse 30.21 of the Karika Samhita states its reverence for the Atharvaveda as follows: Therefore, the physician who has inquired about devotion to the Atharvaveda is ordered from among the four: Rigveda, Samaveda, Yajurveda and Atharvaveda. The roots of Ayurveda, a traditional medical and healthcare practice in India, states Dominic Wujastik, are in Hindu texts of Karika Samhita and Sushruta Samhita, both of which claim their allegiance and inspiration to be the Vedas, especially Atharvaveda. Carr and Katia state that the Indian tradition directly links Ayurveda to Atharvaveda. Wujastik clarifies that the Vedic texts are more a religious discourse, and while herbal healthcare traditions can be found in Atharvaveda, the purely medical literature of ancient India are actually Karika Samhita and Sushruta Samhita. These two are the real roots of Ayurveda. Kenneth Zisk adds Bala Samhita to this list. Literature. The verse 11.7.24 of Atharvaveda contains the oldest known mention of the Indic literary genre, the Puranas. The first millennium AD Buddhist literature included books of magico-religious mantras and spells for protection from evil influences of non-human beings such as demons and ghosts. These were called Parita and Rakmanta, and they share premises and style of hymns found in Atharvaveda.